It can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering paranormal.
He meddled in things that you keep so quiet. He meddled in things. He meddled in things.
Where will we go next? This phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Muller.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Kaiju. To my left,
Jasmine with
and across,
Eli Watson.
and we are
Cryptid Campfire.
Hey everyone, and welcome. We're on a raft in the middle of the ocean. Stefan got carried away by a big pelican, so he's not with us for this episode, but hopefully he comes back.
A giant pelican. Who knows?
Swooped him right up.
But, yeah, so what are we talking about this week?
Today we are going to be talking about mermaids.
Ooh.
And this is there's so much to talk about. There's no possible way we're going to mention everything that anyone wants us to talk about in this episode. We're going to focus on a couple different things about them, the mythology, sightings, hoaxes, and things like that.
I think a fun general kind of course of mermaids.
Yeah. It's gonna.
What, Mermaids 101, dude?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Are we talking about Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy?
No, we're
Evil.
not. So
what's a mermaid?
So almost everyone knows what a mermaid is. You know, it's a half human, half fish creature that lives in the sea. Usually the top half is human, the bottom half is fish. You know,
Imagine if
like
it was
that.
the other way.
Yeah, reverse mermaid.
There are some paintings and some legends that have it reversed.
Yeah.
Like a lot of sea gods and stuff like that.
Big old fish head with a human butt hanging out.
So I have kind of like a speed round of history and mythology of mermaids through other cultures. So magical female figures first appear in cave paintings in the late Stone Age period, about 30,000 years ago. So mermaids are nothing new.
Caveman mermaids.
In the ancient Far East, mermaids were the wives of powerful sea dragons and served as trusted messengers between their spouses and the emperors on land. The Aboriginal people of Australia call mermaids yak-yaks. They possess the ability to manipulate the weather, such as bringing nourishing rain or sending storms to those who make them angry. Greek mythology contains stories of the god of the sea, Triton, who was son of Poseidon and
also ruler of Atlantis.
Oh.
perhaps.
No, that's true.
Perhaps.
We talked about it.
Perhaps.
And when his crown fell off, he was bald underneath.
And several modern religions, including Hinduism, worship mermaid goddesses to this day. So mermaids are like all across this world.
Yeah.
It's not.
Mermaids aren't just for little girls; they're for everyone. They're pretty cool.
So in folklore, mermaids were often associated with misfortune and death. They would lure I always want to say sailors. Sailors.
Sailor Jerry.
Off course and onto rocky shores. So very different from Ariel in Disney's movie.
Yeah, dude.
Could you imagine if she just caused shipwrecks? She's just this monster. That's how she finds Prince Eric, because she lured him and they crashed. She dragged him down.
But here is where there is some confusion. Mermaids and sirens are not the same thing.
What?
I know. So...
That's the thing they put on police cars when they chase bad guys?
So, sirens is a term that was often used... Sirens is often used instead of or in conjunction with mermaids. So people think a siren is a mermaid is a siren, blah, 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 blah.
Do they look the same?
They do not.
What?
In Greek mythology, sirens are actually half woman and half bird. Men who heard their song became instantly mesmerized and walked to where they would be, which would cause them to drown or be eaten, the whole lure them to their death thing. So I read an article that was contributed to by Emily Wilson, who is a classicist at the University of Pennsylvania. She has a new English translation of Homer's Odyssey, which has won her lots of awards for its modern language and style.
And when was that published?
I don't know. I don't have a date for that.
But recently?
Is it past 10 years? 20 years?
I would have to go back to my citations.
Continue.
So she suggests that later writers might have combined sirens with water nymphs, like the Lorelei, which was a 19th century poetic creation whose seductive songs lured men to their deaths along the European Rhine River. So the sirens likely got consumed, too, by the explosion of seductive mermaid iconography during the same period. However it happened, the identification of sirens with mermaids seems to have affected later translations of the Odyssey. So what it comes down to is people were translating the Odyssey incorrectly, kind of taking creative liberties and making it something that it wasn't. So
Oh, it sounds familiar. Atlantis.
so translators,
Every piece of literature ever.
so translators in the 19th and 20th centuries cast the sirens in a sexualized light. So in one prose translation, the sirens speak of, quote, the sweet voice from our lips, end quote, despite the original word, which I obviously can't pronounce because it's written in symbols that I do not know, but it's from the original,
Text.
Odyssey. Yeah, the original text. The word directly translates to mouths, so it's just kind of this whole idea of like mouths isn't very sensual, but lips.
Yeah, I was gonna say
whatever.
it was the original translation, the beautiful sound from our beaks.
No, it wasn't.
They out there showing them sailors what that mouth do.
Yeah.
But then like
Eating 'em.
another descriptor says lips as well, each purling note like honey twining from our lips. But unlike the Odyssey's other island temptresses, Circe and Calypso, who are mentioned, the sirens actually get no admiring description of their faces or hair. Only their voice is described, and their field of bones and flowers.
Ooh.
So, basically, sirens and mermaids are not the same thing. They were confused, and they were combined just because of mistranslations.
General laziness.
Yeah. But over the centuries, sirens and mermaids became the personification of dangerous, beautiful women, femme fatales. And sometimes even ordinary women were called sirens if their seductive lifestyle led to misfortune or death.
Oh.
Femme fatales, dude. Imagine a noir film with a mermaid as the femme fatale, dude.
Yeah.
And
Imagine
she's
just
smoking cigarettes.
Yeah. Well, imagine like a film noir version of the Odyssey.
Whoa.
Toward,
I don't know if that would work.
Yeah, to where Homer's just like a, tough detective who punches people and smokes cigars, and he's going off to different places, and he's got the sirens after him. And
Talking about Odysseus, not Homer.
yeah, they're all the same guy. It's that Joseph Campbell says so.
So that's sirens. But there's also mermen
Every so often.
that are equally fierce in summoning storms, sinking ships, and drowning sailors.
Seducing them too.
So, perhaps. So, there's a group called the Blue Men of the Minch. Did either of you read about these people?
The Blue Men group?
These mermen. They are said to dwell in the outer Hebrides. I can't pronounce any of these locations. Hebrides island chain off the coast of Scotland. So, they look like, ordinary men from the torso up, but they do have blue tinted skin and gray beards.
Interesting.
Local
Gray
lore
beards.
claims that before laying siege to a ship, the blue men often challenge its captain to a rhyming contest.
Oh.
If the captain is quick enough of wit and agile enough of tongue, he can best the blue men and save his sailors from a watery grave.
So they have impromptu rap battles?
Yeah, I guess so, dude.
Whoa.
That's wild.
Imagine 8 Mile, but he's up against mermen.
Whoa!
So there's a lot of legends about like dangerous mermaids. They're
They
not
all seem
very friendly.
Yeah, they seem like they want to drown and eat people. And
Yeah.
Challenge you to rap battles.
Yeah, ooh.
So the girls will sing you to death, but the dudes will rap you to death.
Yeah.
Basically.
That's wild.
And sometimes they switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, right.
But in some legends from Scotland and Wales, mermaids befriended and even married humans.
Oh.
Mary Lau, she has a book called Seduction and the Secret Power of Women. She says that in the Shetland Islands, mermaids are stunningly beautiful women who live under the sea. Their hybrid appearance is temporary, the effect being achieved by donning the skin of a fish.
Oh.
And they must be very careful not to lose this while wandering about on land, because without it, they would be unable to return to their underwater realm.
Where's that?
Shetland Islands.
In Scotland, you said?
Maybe.
Okay, I was gonna say that
Is that
sounds.
where the Shetland Islands are?
I don't know. You tell me. That sounds like
Shetland.
Selkies.
Yeah,
Cause I think they're Irish, maybe Scottish.
I think they're Irish.
Yeah, to where they're seals. And then they're ladies and they wear seal skins. They take the seal skins off, and if they lose it, they can't turn back. So that's interesting. So there's the mermaid and Selkies are very similar to where they wear clothes, kind of like werewolves, to where sometimes they put on like pelts.
Or skinwalkers, you know,
Yeah.
they
Yeah, because we've talked about a couple different creatures that kind of
wear
do that
skins.
thing.
Yeah, to where they're
Yeah.
human in all appearance, so then they put a skin and they turn into the animal. And
Yeah.
if they lose that skin, they can't turn back.
That'd be
And
interesting.
then I got one more fun cultural mermaid legend. We've got
Ooh.
the Japanese legend of the merfolk called Kappa.
Oh.
They're said to reside in Japanese lakes, coasts, and rivers. They're like the size of children, so they look like kids.
Oh yeah.
They're more animal than human, though, because they apparently have monkey faces and tortoise shells on their backs.
Mm-hmm.
But like the Blue Men, the Kappa sometimes interact with humans and challenge them to games of skill in which the penalty for losing is death. And I really liked this quote from the source that I read. It makes me laugh. Kappa are said to have an appetite for children and those foolish enough to swim alone in remote places. But they especially prize fresh cucumbers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know what's crazy about kappas too? So yeah, they're tiny. They look like little turtle men with monkey faces. Their heads are hollow, and they have water. Their head is like a bowl, and it has water in it.
Oh yeah.
And they say that if you can escape from it, if you turn it over and the water spills out, they'll die.
Oh.
Oh
So-
dang. So you
so-
basically win by spilling his brains out.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But just in case he lost that game, a twister to a kappa and is trying to drown you, try to knock its head over.
I was gonna say I would just pick it up by its legs and just toss it.
Yeah, turtle pea soup.
Turtle pieces.
But if I can segue to some actual sightings that you guys want to share, the reality of mermaids was actually like believed during medieval
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, people believed in
They
mermaids.
were depicted like matter-of-factly alongside animals like whales. Hundreds of sailors years ago and residents in coastal towns around the world had stories about encountering them. So
Oh yeah.
please share.
Well,
Ooh.
so the first one I have comes from the year 1572. Keep in mind, this is not the first time someone has seen a mermaid or reported to have seen a mermaid.
Yeah.
But this is one that is interesting of note. So we have the eastern coast of the Danish island known as Zealand. Different from New Zealand.
This is Old Zealand.
This is Old Zealand. So New Zealand is actually named after Zealand. So this took place in 1546, and it depends on which source, because it could have taken place in either 1546 or 49. Sources vary. So Jasmine was talking about how they were taken as real animals back then. So we have these natural history books that are like trying to document all these animals.
Bestiaries.
Bestiaries, or one of the first encyclopedicians, I think they're
Okay.
called. His name's Conrad Gessner, and we'll be talking about him a little bit more. But basically, they found this fish on the coast of Zealand, and it looked superficially like a monk. This is where we get the name the monkfish,
Okay.
or the fish monk.
The sea monk.
The sea monk. So we have a couple of people talking about it. So our first one is a guy named Guillaume Rondelet, French dude. He published a book in 1554, and he classified the sea monk as a merman, or a homo maris in the Latin terms, which I think is really cool. That just means man of the sea.
Yeah. Fishman.
Yeah, fishman. So it's pretty tight. However, he suspected the pictures, and if you look up the pictures, you can find the all these natural history pictures fairly easily. He believes that they were embellished, because literally what you're looking at is a picture of a dude with like a fish with a face.
Yeah.
And so you're like, whoa, this is wild that they actually found this.
Whoa,
but,
medieval
like,
times going crazy.
but they might not have actually found it.
It was a metaphor the whole time.
Yeah. So Conrad Gessner, who I just mentioned, he has a encyclopedia of 3 volumes called Historiae Animalium. so the history of animals. And he talks about it as well. He believes it 100%. Like, boom, he's doubling down. This is real. There's a race of them out there. However, as time went on, people started disagreeing about the sea monk being like a real deal. So, for example, in the 1850s, a Danish zoologist, Japetus Steenstrup, suggested it was a giant squid.
Okay.
Which is interesting because giant squids were known to have existed for a while, but like people hadn't caught one, much less photographed them because photographs didn't exist yet. But,
yeah, all the pictures that you're talking about, they're drawings.
Yeah, they're drawings.
Yeah.
So we also have cryptozoologist Bernard Heuvelmans, which he's considered the father of cryptozoology, also a French man.
Okay.
He says that he thinks the sea monk was a walrus.
Okay,
yeah. Probably a decomposing walrus.
If we go back to the squid thing for just a minute, the reason that it was assumed it was a squid was because it had a black head and red and black spots just like a squid would. But some of the early reports claim that the sea monk had scales, which is not true of a squid. So that's where there's kind of some questioning.
And that's not true of a walrus either. But,
yeah.
And some people think it's an angel shark. I read that. But angel sharks also do not have scales.
Yeah.
So I guess the truth is, this thing that was found 500 years ago, we'll probably never know what it was.
Yeah.
Well, did you read about how they think it was a Jenny Hanover? Do you know what a Jenny Hanover is?
No.
So, first of all, I don't remember what you said at the beginning about how it was found, because when I read about it, it said it either washed up or was caught.
Yeah, I was going to get to that, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
The origin story is different depending on the source.
So it could have been alive or it could have not been alive. If it was found not alive, it could have been a Jenny Hanover, which is basically an art form, apparently. It's the carcass of a small shark, ray, or skate, which I did not know what a skate was, but I learned that it's a typically large marine fish of the ray family. Basically, you modify it, hand dry it, and make a mummified specimen that looks like a demon or a dragon. Do you know any more about this?
I just know about them, the Jenny Hanovers. I'll pull up a picture too, so you know what it looks like.
And no one knows where the term came from either.
I think it's like I want to say it's probably like a corruption of like different like Old English and stuff. But that's what you know what it looks like.
Yeah.
But this is what a Jenny Hanover looks like.
Ew.
And so maybe we'll throw it up on the Instagram. But it basically looks like a little like a baby alien.
Yeah.
And yeah, you basically just take the like a manta ray or a shark, you dry it out in certain ways. It kind of preserves it, and it shrinks, and it looks like it's got a little human face. And people would just like people knew how to do it, and they'd take it around and be like, "Hey, look, I found this demon. Like it fell from the sky. Like you want to buy its corpse? Like how much? I don't know, like 50 pence."
What?
Yeah. So it's basically just like a dried fish that looks weird, and it's like a novelty item that people would pass off as like a sea monster, or like a demon or an angel. And actually got there was this toy line from the 90s called Monster in My Pocket. There was little like 2-inch rubber figures of different monsters. They had like Frankenstein, Loch Ness Monster. I think even Bigfoot was in there. Nice. Jack the Ripper and stuff. And they made a Jenny Hanover. But it made it like what it would look like if it wasn't dried out, and it's like a little like cone-headed monster with like sharp teeth, like a piranha face.
Yeah.
And so Jenny Hanover is just remembered as a rubber toy monster.
But the problem with the sea monk being a Jenny Hanover is that if it was caught alive, like there's no way that that's what it would have been.
Because is this the one where there's a story where if they did catch it, it was just like, hey, listen, I'm like a sea monk.
No. That's what's coming up
the
next.
Different one, okay.
Yeah, it's called the bishop
fish. Yeah.
Yeah, and which is also written about by Conrad Gessner.
Okay.
So, and this, according to legend, it was captured, taken to the King of Poland, because the King of Poland wanted to keep this thing.
Yeah.
But then some Catholic bishops showed up. This thing was like, hey, bro, I'm a bishop.
We're
as
from
well.
the same team, man.
Yeah, we're from the same team, but I'm from the ocean. You guys got to return me. So they brought him back to the ocean. He made the sign of the cross and went back into the sea.
It's funny, too, because that raises so many questions.
Right?
It's just like, wait, what?
Right? I don't know. And there's like a couple drawings out there of it as well.
It's basically so. I think the monkfish. It looks like a monk. It's got like the ring of hair and it's got like little flippers. And the bishopfish is a full-on man with a beard with a hat.
Yeah.
He's got like a fat fish body and little tiny legs.
Yeah, it's true.
It's kind of a reverse mermaid.
And but actually this wasn't the only case of a bishopfish being captured. So there was another one captured in Germany in 1531, which raises questions because Germany's a landlocked country.
Yeah.
So maybe, also 1531, Germany wasn't exactly a country yet.
Yeah.
So it was a bunch of small city-states. Anyways.
Maybe they caught it on the Rhine because it's like a river that goes through.
Yeah.
It got through it took the wrong turnover and got in the Rhine.
So, but they caught it and they tried feeding it, but it refused to eat, and after 3 days it died.
Yeah.
So, that one's actually pictured in Gessner's book.
Yeah, they had a fish fry too, I bet.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the monkfish. Oh, it's funny too because you were talking about what's his name? Gessner?
Yeah, Conrad Gessner.
He's like, hey, listen, everyone, I think there's a race of like fish people out there, you know, and everyone's just like, hey, you know, you're crazy. And he's like, I just want to tell you, there's a little thing that happened. I don't know if you heard of it. The Bronze Age collapse.
I knew that was going to come up.
Well, that's not the last time Conrad Gessner was talking about
fish people, because there's also a sea satyr, which we've actually used as a meme in one of our earliest posts. Oh, that's the one that's like it's like a tiger lion face, right? Yeah,
that's a sea satyr, and that comes from Conrad Gessner's book.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that funny? That's how we're using old encyclopedias. We're using them as memes.
The man's entire, like, life's work is a good meme in 2019.
But when do we talk about the beautiful mermaids, Eli? When do we talk about the women with the flowing hair and the seashell bras?
Yeah.
We don't, never.
Never?
Never.
What?
Well, I have a couple other things, some other mythos, I guess, if you will, about mermaids. One of the oldest examples of a deity looking like a merman is Dagon. And that was actually, he was the national god of the Philistines, who, if we remember back from the Bronze Age, was one of the theories. The Philistines was one of the theories of them being the sea people.
Yeah.
Who brought the collapse of the Bronze Age. And so I think it's interesting. These are theories that they are the sea people and their national god is literally
a big fish man.
But Dagon was kind of like a borrowed figure because he's also from Mesopotamian lore, but his name was Dagan at that time. Samson in the Bible, going back to the Philistines, Samson in the Bible actually destroys
a
temple.
Oh, temple, right?
When you know, if you
is that
remember
when he's locked up, right? And they cut his hair,
and they gouge out his eyes.
Yeah, and he's just laying there, and he's just like, "Dear God, give me the strength to take down this gaudy temple." And God's like, "Well, I can give you one more." Zap.
And that was actually a temple of Dagon that he destroyed. So.
Yeah, and then Dagon is famously used in Lovecraft.
Yeah, but before that, the Syrians. So this is kind of where things get weird with Dagon, because Dagon originally was not a fishman. He was a god of agriculture. But the problem was when the Assyrians had him as their god, as one of their gods.
Yeah.
The word, whatever it was in Assyrian, was really similar to fish.
Oh, okay.
And so they were like, "Oh yeah, Fishman."
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it came from.
So, a wacky misunderstanding.
Yeah, exactly. So, he was even the god of war at one point. So I don't know. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, Dagon is a cool name too.
Yeah, it is.
Dagon, the fish god.
But like you were saying, used in Lovecraft.
Yeah, famous in Lovecraft. Lovecraft took lots of different like mythologies and kind of retextualized them for his mythos.
Yeah.
And Dagon is a big giant fish god in the Lovecraft universe who spawns little deep ones that are like little mermen that go around and eat people.
Yeah.
And he's got a wife called Mother Hydra, which is Greek monster.
Yeah.
So just plagiarize whatever you find, everyone, and you too can be a success. It's been happening throughout all history.
But I guess going back to some sightings. I got some crazy ones from China.
Oh, yeah.
And so from a book called Jottings on the South of China, published in 1730. Of course, that's a translation.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the actual name. This book contains 2 accounts of merfolk. So the first one, a man captured a mermaid on the shore of Lantau Island.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked human in nearly every respect, except her body was covered in fine hair of many colors. And we'll come back to the hair
Yeah.
in a different sighting.
Okay.
But she can't talk, but she can sing.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird contrast. So I guess the blending of the siren and the mermaid kind of lore. So she can't say anything, so the dude decides, well, I'm going to take her home and marry her.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
What the heck? Whenever you meet a hairy lady who can sing, that's wife material.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. Anyways, she stays with him until he dies, and then she returns back to the ocean.
Oh, she's like, well, this is fun.
Yeah, I guess.
Did she
It
age?
was nice while it lasted, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. And so, in the second account, a man found a woman on the beach, but her hands and feet were webbed.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Whoa.
yeah, and he helped her into the water, and she waved goodbye and swam away.
Oh, okay.
Kind of weird.
Very brief. Very sweet.
Was she hairy too, or?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
In 1493, Christopher Columbus.
Oh,
Sailed the
no.
ocean 3.
Well, he was off the coast of Hispaniola,
Mhm.
or what was soon to be Hispaniola. He spotted 3 sirens, and he described them as not as beautiful as they are represented,
Yeah.
due to masculine features in their faces. And most historians kind of consider this to be manatees.
Yeah.
So,
Once again, Christopher Columbo
yeah.
sees something weird, everyone laughs at him for it, and he goes and commits genocide.
Well, a lot of the sightings that people claim to have of mermaids are assumed to just be misidentifications of like manatees and things
Yeah.
like that.
Because manatees are awesome. The cows of the sea. But it's funny too when you think back at like throughout history, they're like mermaids, these beautiful creatures in the sea, and it's like, well, I mean, maybe beauty standards were different back then. You see a manatee,
Yeah.
and you're like, there's one thick mermaid out there. I want to crash my ship to get to it.
Yeah, because they have a flat mermaid-like tail, 2 flippers that resemble
A little-
stubby arms.
That wave at people.
So they don't look
Big
like
old kissable lips.
they don't look like our beautified version of a typical mermaid, but sightings are usually from far away. I mean, obviously this guy who picked one up off the beach, you know,
Yeah, see,
He's
I
not
don't.
gonna know it.
There's no real evidence for
Yeah.
those, though.
Could a Chinese man have married a manatee?
I don't know.
Could a
But-
manatee live on land that long?
Maybe he's put in the bathtub.
But this is a problem that we run into with a lot of the different cryptids that we talk about. Is just simple misidentifications because people are either too far away or, you know, the weather conditions are weird.
I mean, or just you're sailing in the ocean and you see something in the distance that pops up and kind of
Yeah.
because manatees can like float upright in the water, so they're up there like sunbathing, or like
Yeah.
beating their chest with their little flippers and like, whoa, I think there's a person out there, and then they dive and you see a tail.
Yeah.
You factor in low light at sunset, distances between, just the glimpse of, like you said, like a head or an arm or a tail just before it dives into the water can spawn tons of mermaid reports.
Yeah, because I guess the head is kind of head-shaped on a manatee.
Yeah.
Or like human-shaped, you know what I mean?
Could you imagine? We should make this a meme to where it's a picture of a traditional mermaid, and it's like, when did this become hotter than this? And it's a picture of a manatee.
That meme, though, where it's like that woman swimming in the ocean and she gets bit by a shark as it's jumping.
Oh yeah.
They're like, whoa, it's a
The
mermaid,
mermaid.
but it's a woman getting bitten in half.
By a shark, yeah.
So awful, dude. But I have some other sightings of some supposedly captured mermaids.
Ooh.
Captured live, which raise many, many questions. Anyways, this comes from...
I like it when your eyes get big.
Dude, you'll see why.
You thought a Catholic fishman raised questions. Wait till this happens.
Dude, wait till this happened. Alright, so this comes from a book called Monsters in Print, written by Adam Benedict. So in it, he runs the Pine Barrens Institute website. The book Monsters in Print is basically a collection of just American newspapers and their reportings of creatures that people supposedly saw. And so he goes back to like the early 1800s all the way to like basically present day. Pretty interesting stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I have 2 accounts from this from like the late 1800s about mermaids caught in the United States. So the first one is according to the Lexington Dispatch article published on November 24th, 1880 in South Carolina. And it starts off with this San Franciscan named Chaz A. Doyle. And he bought a mermaid while in Japan.
Yeah?
So supposedly, this mermaid was captured by some fishermen. It had been seen singing. Again, similar situation. It couldn't talk, which I think is interesting because I'm pretty sure at this point in time, people weren't like trading notes.
Yeah.
Or like were aware of other...
the different...
I highly doubt...
sides of mermaids, I guess.
Yeah, I doubt Chaz A. Doyle was in China looking for references to seamen.
He was reading with jottings on the side of China.
Yeah. So, yeah, right. So, supposedly this mermaid was captured by these fishermen 2 years prior to the publication of the article, and it had been fed with special seaweed, which I guess only Japanese people know the secret of.
Sake. It's just sake soaked seaweed.
It had been stored in a museum in Tokyo for a year and a half, and that's when Chaz A. Doyle showed up, and he was like, I want that. And he bought her for $5,000.
Whoa.
Which is a lot of money back then. And he took it to America to show it around, and that's where this article is being written. And so Mr. Doyle said that it had been examined by scientists, and the scientists said that it was real and that mermaids are no longer a myth. And this is like my biggest question. The article says that this mermaid is bigger than the other mermaid in the country at the time, which was being held at the New York Aquarium.
Okay.
And I was looking into like the Fiji mermaid, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's not.
Yeah.
The times don't match up.
And also it's in the aquarium, it's alive, right?
Yeah, which I'm just like, what? So maybe, I don't know. I gotta like dig into that. I gotta figure that out. Anyways, what they said of the mermaid, the description of the appearance was that it was ugly. The upper body, including the arms, are all human. The lower half is scaly. The arms are actually covered in scales all the way up to the wrists. But the head is small as a baby's, but perfectly formed. They said that the forehead keeps going up, kind of like ours, to indicate intelligence. The eyes are soft, swimmy, and lifeless, like a fish. And it had short, light brown hair and 10 ribs.
Whoa.
But Chaz A. Doyle refused to sell it because he was too emotionally attached to his mermaid. But I think that's a pretty wild ride.
Yeah, that's it? No other...
No, that's it. That's the article.
That's crazy.
There's some bones in Japan, too, of mermaid bones.
Really?
Supposedly. According to legend, in April of 1222, a mermaid washed ashore in Hakata Bay on the Japanese island of Kyushu. So a shaman declared that the mermaid was a good omen for the nation, and its bones were then buried at Yukumito Temple. Many believe that what Japanese fishermen and seamen perceived to be mermaids were actually dugong, and dugong are large sea mammals that live in the warm coastal waters. They resemble and are closely related to the manatee, and travel alone or in pairs. So it's also possible that the bones came from a finless porpoise, but between 1772 and 1781, the bones of this mermaid were removed from their resting place, and visitors to the temple were able to partake of the water in which the mermaid bones had been soaked. Because at the time, people claimed that soaking in the water would protect them from diseases and epidemics.
That's a good way to get a disease.
I know. Today, 6 of the bones still remain at the temple, which can be seen by appointment, and they appear smooth and glossy, a look achieved by centuries of handling. So it's
Interesting.
like a really simple story. I read in the article that they asked, I think it was the guy who was ever in charge of like displaying them, they asked like, well, do you believe it's real? Like, do you have any proof? And the guy was basically just like, I'm gonna let a legend be a legend. I don't know if it's real, I don't know if it's fake, but I think it's good for the community if we just accept it as what it is. And I was like,
Yeah.
I respect that.
You gotta have some fun.
I guess.
That's wild, though. Wait, so what about do you know anything about the other mermaid that was in the aquarium?
No. See, that's the thing. Is like it's not one of the articles in the book.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't know. I don't know if I want to, but I might try to like dig it up.
Yeah.
To see, because there's no way, right? They're mentioning this mermaid in a New York aquarium. There's got to be at least one article from New York.
It's so like flippant too. So it's not as big. It's bigger than the other one in New York. Like,
It's
wait,
like,
what?
what?
There's
Yeah,
two
exactly.
mermaids in America at the same time,
Right? And it's not.
And everyone's just like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's not like earth-shattering. Like, yeah, no, the mermaids are real.
Yeah, but Jasmine brought up porpoise.
Famous porpoise.
Yeah, porpoise fishing is a thing. And that segues us into our next story. So this one's also from the same book, Monsters in Print. This story takes place a little bit later. This is according to The Sun on November 8th, 1896 in New York. But the article was taken from the Washington Post.
Okay, I was gonna say, isn't the Sun like not
Yes.
respected? It's like tabloid.
Yeah,
It's not a
but
real
I mean
newspaper.
the article was taken from the Washington
Okay.
Post. So
Okay.
it's like a reprinted article.
Gotcha.
So, and it takes place in Tacoma, Washington on October 31st, actually.
Hey.
So that's when the article was originally published. So it was reprinted, I guess, like a week later. So some Englishman brought a merman to shore that he caught while porpoise fishing.
Okay.
So this guy was named Major W.E. Thorncliffe of the British Army, and he was going to take it to the Queen to get it put in the British Museum.
Yeah. Maybe get knighted in the process too.
Yeah, so, yeah, probably. But basically, the reporter is saying that Thorncliffe had it in this coffin-shaped box, 10 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 3 feet deep. And in it was like, it's frozen
Okay.
in the box.
Put it on ice.
Yeah. And so, I mean, preserves it, right? He's got to travel all that way. So they open up the box. There's a blanket covering it. Thorncliffe removes the blanket, and he sees this merman that's 10 feet from nose to the other side of its fluke.
Okay.
Or fluke-shaped tail, sorry. And so the girth of its human-shaped body was 6 feet, so the girth is basically the circumference around.
Okay.
So
Got
I don't know if that's big or not. I don't know what the average... I should have looked up the average girth of a human.
Yeah, it was maybe a chubby fellow.
Yeah, or just big, because he is
Yeah.
10 feet.
Yeah, just...
And it said that he probably weighed close to 500 pounds.
Ooh, chonky mermaid.
Yeah. But he is 10 feet long. So
So to his people, he's svelte.
yeah. But here we go. This is when we get into the description of it. And he's covered in long, coarse, dark red hair. Which I think is interesting considering the Chinese report of them being covered in hair.
Yeah.
But that was multicolored hair. This is a single shade. And the entire body's covered in this, even the tail and everything. And so it originally had 10 fingers on each hand, but they think because of a battle it had with some sort of fish, it only had 4 fingers and a thumb on the right hand. And then on the left hand, the little finger and the thumb were missing.
Oh.
But the fingers also weren't just like regular fingers, they ended in claws.
Oh.
Yeah. And there was a scar underneath his right breast, and they think that might have been through a battle with a swordfish.
Oh.
But it was like an old scar, like, and they said his whole body was covered in scars. Like you couldn't put a hand on him that wasn't like a place covered with a scar without like touching a scar. But yeah, so the last we ever hear of it is Thorncliffe was taking it to Britain.
Yeah.
And
It just disappeared? He disappeared too?
yeah, I mean, that's just like, I mean, I don't know, like I said, this is only American newspapers,
Yeah.
so like it would be interesting to see if there's any British newspapers that kind of reported on that.
And it's interesting too, the red hair, because
Yeah.
weren't the giants?
Covered in red hair as well,
Yeah.
and Sasquatch is covered in red hair. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, Sasquatch got on with a fish and made a baby.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Like some of the similarities between these sources.
From all
Especially-
different areas of the world where they really, there's no need to communicate. Be like, oh,
Yeah.
hey, what's your mermaid
Yeah,
lore?
what's your mermaid myth? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like I don't feel like that's a thing that came up with ancient Chinese trading.
Tell me about your mermaids.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's wild.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Interesting for sure.
Mm-hmm.
A reason you should buy that book. So what's up?
Let's see. So we talked about, the history of mermaids.
Oh, I guess I could talk about the documentary, the Animal Planet.
Oh,
Oh, wait, no, before you do that,
Okay.
I want you to, let's talk about the hoaxes, because the
Okay, all right,
documentary
all right.
kind of finishes
Oh,
off
okay.
that
Okay, all right,
subject.
all right. So
Let's talk about the freaking Fiji mermaid.
Okay,
Fiji
we got the
mermaid.
Fiji mermaid.
so
So we talked about Jenny Hanivers, which are a famous hoax. But the most famous mermaid hoax would probably be the Fiji mermaid. And it's, I guess we'll get it out of the way. It's the remains of a creature that usually looks like a weird little goblin upper half with a weird fish tail.
yeah.
And it was supposedly caught off the coast of Fiji Islands in the South Pacific.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, so the story is it was bought by this gentleman, Samuel Barrett Edis,
Yeah.
in 1822 for some Japanese sailors.
Did you get how much it was bought for?
$6,000.
Insane, dude.
Yeah, he's just like hanging out. Just some Japanese fishermen are like, hey, look at this thing. He's like, here's $6,000. Take it.
Yeah.
And so he got this weird remains, showed it off in London, and then it was later sold in 1842 by his son to this guy called Moses Kimball, who was an actual rival of P.T. Barnum.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess you didn't say that. The Fiji mermaid was like a P.T. Barnum thing, right?
Oh well, that's the thing.
Oh, okay.
So he bought it. Moses Campbell bought it off of the guy's son. He took it to New York and he went to his rival / friend P.T. Barnum. He's like, look what I got.
Yep.
And thus begins the story of P.T. Barnum taking it across the country, showing it off for, I don't know, pay $1 or $2 and come look at the Fiji mermaid. And he had it examined too by medical people, and they refused to comment on it.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
don't know what this is. We refuse to comment. And he's like, aha, take that, science.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, the original remains were lost.
They think it burned in a fire. Right?
Yeah, I guess there's a huge fire and just a lot of P.T. Barnum's
Yeah.
weirdo stuff got burned up.
Apparently there's several.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
There are
one
several
of them.
Fiji mermaids. It
No,
was-
not several Fiji mermaids, several fires.
Yeah, no, he had several different fires, but also like different mermaids kind of popped up too,
Yeah.
varying degrees. But picture the Greatest Showman,
Yeah.
like him singing and dancing while he's holding a Fiji mermaid. He's just like, hey, look at this, everybody.
Man,
Yeah.
I love The Greatest Showman so much, though. But like when you think about the person that P.T. Barnum really was, it's like, oh man, why did
Yeah.
they have to make
It's like,
Hugh Jackman
Hugh
like
Jackman,
look so attractive in that role? Like,
Yeah.
kind of a monster.
the music in
Yeah.
that movie is amazing. I love that movie,
I thought
but
it was really bad.
basically, well, the movie was. Anyways, that's a side note. But
So
the thing about this Fiji mermaid is like it wasn't even his, like he was leasing it from
yeah, he was
Kimball.
paying
Like, he was
$12.50 a
paying
week
Kimball
to lease this bad
to
boy.
do that. Yeah,
Which is crazy because you figure that
Yeah.
thing was a $6,000 artifact, and he's just like, for $12 a week, I get to do whatever the hell I want with it.
Yeah.
But
I
he
know.
claimed, when he was showing it, he claimed that it was from the London Lyceum of Natural History, which didn't actually exist.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it was all part of his act, his show.
But it was in London though. So
Yeah,
there's a every good lie has a little truth in it. So
True.
And he also he paid he had one of his friends pretend to be a professor.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, who actually checked into like hotel rooms under that name and was just like, oh, I forget what he called himself, maybe Reed or something.
Yeah.
And he even would check in hotel rooms and like show it off to people, be like, hey, look what I got,
Yeah.
to like spread the myth around of the Fiji mermaid.
Yeah.
And so you say to yourself, wow, real life mermaid remains. Chartered across the country for $12 a week.
Well,
What
it's
a
interesting.
steal.
You brought it up earlier. So basically, what they did is just took a monkey upper body and a
sold
fish
it to
lower
a
body.
fish.
But like people had been doing that for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
I know I talked about Conrad Gessner a lot earlier, but he even talks about it was a Chinese tradition.
Yeah.
You know, they were doing that for centuries.
Yeah.
And, you know, Conrad Gessner, 1500s, was talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
But yes, that's what the Fiji mermaid is. It's just
Nothing.
creative taxidermy.
Yeah,
yeah,
it was a traditional art form that had been practiced.
pretty wild.
And I know that you said the mermaid remains might have been destroyed, but there is some speculation about if that's true or not.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what happened is, yes, there were fires. So it's thought that his mermaid was destroyed in a fire that broke out and burned down Barnum's museum in 1865. However, at that time, the mermaid would have been displayed at Kimball's Boston Museum, but it also would have perished because there was also a fire at his museum in the early 1880s.
Yeah.
But it also has been claimed that by some miracle, the mermaid was rescued from either one of the fires and ended up in Harvard's Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology. So that museum does have a quote Fiji mermaid, but it's not actually known if it's the original.
Well, I think the description, because we have descriptions and drawings of the original Fiji mermaid, and the one that they have there doesn't look anything like it.
Yeah.
So they're pretty sure it's not the one. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume too that maybe it just fell apart over time because it's.
I mean, it's made out of natural things, right?
Yeah, it's made out of just taxidermied animals, and they're lugging it around left and right. Putting it in boxes, putting it out. So it probably could just fell apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the Fiji mermaid. They're pretty cool looking too, because they're just like that whole gross like, hey, you want to see what a mermaid looks like? And you picture like Little Mermaid, pretty, and it's like here's like a weird little goblin thing with a fish tail, and it's like an eternal scream of like.
So, but also, there's the Banff mermaid. I don't know, or the merman, and this was a little bit after the Fiji mermaid, like early 1900s. And it was acquired by this guy named Norman Luxton in 1915. And he got it from some Javanese salesman, or possibly built by Luxton himself. And he attempted... See, this is what's interesting. So he acquired this mermaid. So he put it in a museum, and I think you can go still see the original Banff mermaid at this museum. And I'm sorry, I will put it in an Instagram post. Don't attack me for not having this information. Anyways, what's interesting is he acquired it when he attempted to sail around the world in a canoe. The things people do.
Yeah,
I don't know if he was successful or not, but I'm willing to bet that he wasn't. Oh yeah, he wasn't, because he almost died. So
20 minutes into it, he died. Almost died.
yeah, but it's a similar thing. Monkey body sewn to a fish tail. Pretty interesting works of taxidermy.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy too. Jasmine said it's like a traditional Chinese art form. So it's pretty cool that just get creative with a dead monkey and a couple fish.
Yeah, right.
Make a little horrified statue.
So, what was the most recent sighting that you guys researched at all?
I think that would have been the 1896 by the Thorncliffe guy.
Oh.
I found some where it was like within like the past couple years people were seeing, but it was always just like, someone thinks they saw a mermaid, and there was no one on the corroborate.
I read a Reddit story that supposedly occurred within the past 10 years, but I couldn't find it to reread it. But supposedly this guy was out there with his homies. I think they were all military personnel, and they got caught in a storm and were desperately trying to like get their ship back together after the calm, like just like trying to regroup. And him and his sergeant or whatever, they were pulling some things up from the side of the ship, and they just saw this human head just pop out, look at them for a second, dip back under.
Ooh.
And then they didn't like talk about it immediately. They just kind of like saw it, and they're like, "Hey, did you see that?" And he's like, "Yep." And I was like, they're not gonna really talk about it.
Yeah.
But weird.
I've got a 2009 report that happened off the coast of Israel.
Oh, okay.
A mermaid apparently performed a few tricks for onlookers just before sunset. Like, just showed up and started doing tricks. I don't know what kind of tricks.
Like
they didn't specify.
SeaWorld, like Shamu, like jumping through roofs, rings, and like did a backflip.
Yeah, but then she disappeared for the night. And one of the people who had seen the mermaid said that they were with friends when they saw a woman laying on the sand in a weird way. At first, we thought she was just another sunbather, but when we approached, she jumped into the water and disappeared. We were all in shock because we saw she had a tail. So the town's tourism board decided to offer a $1 million reward for the first person to photograph the creature, but the reports vanished almost as quickly as they surfaced, and no one ever claimed the reward.
Weird.
Crazy.
And then in 2012, we had Animal Planet's special Mermaids, the Body Found documentary.
And I watched it.
Yeah?
You did?
I did. There's a watch. As soon as I say this, YouTube is going to take it down. But there's a 1080p rip on YouTube. Looks fantastic. But I remember watching this when it came out. I think it came out in like 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
And so like that was like, how old was I? I was like 13 or 14.
Okay.
And I saw it on TV, and they don't mention explicitly that it's a mockumentary.
They do not.
Yeah.
It's
They don't.
presented as real.
And I remember like seeing it, and I was like, mermaids are real.
Wow.
This is insane, because they play everything off, they find this mermaid body. Okay, so it's a mass beaching of whales,
Yeah.
right? And the government's testing out new sonar technology, and it killed all these whales.
Ooh.
And they all washed up on shore. But amongst the whales, there's a mermaid.
Oh.
And some little kids found it and recorded it on a cell phone. And so you have these people from NOAA, the National Oceanic American something.
National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Yeah, that one. And we talked about that in our episode about the bloop,
Mhm.
because this does stem from the bloop. But you have these scientists, or these people pretending to be scientists from NOAA.
Mhm.
They are finding these whales, and they end up finding a mermaid body inside of a whale
Mhm.
in South Africa. And they're like studying it, and they can't figure out what it is. It's like this anomaly, because originally they think it's a manatee.
Yeah.
Or like other things, but the bones aren't fitting together right. And they're like, whoa, it's a mermaid. And, it's all very, like, dramatic. But then the government swoops in, takes the remains, takes all their research, and you're like, whoa, the government's covering up mermaids.
Yeah.
But not
And
really.
Animal Planet's busting the lid off.
Right. But apparently the bloop in that mockumentary, which sounds nothing like the actual sound of the bloop, is they, through very sciencey terms, they slow it down to human frequency. And it's a bunch of voices crying out.
Yeah.
So I guess the bloop is created when a huge chunk of mermaids are hunting.
Oh.
But the coolest part of the documentary, I think, is when they're talking about like different countries and different fishermen, like deep sea fishermen, are finding like spears and stuff stuck inside sharks.
Ooh.
Or in like whales. Like when they pull them out of the water, they have like just a spear stuck in them. Like made from like whale bones and like different materials. They talk about, I think they say the shaft is made out of whale bone, but the tip is a barb from a stingray.
Whoa.
And it's like, and they like do fake images and everything, but it looks like so cool. And you're like, what? This is what the documentary should have been.
Yeah.
Because this is way cooler. They like interview like this German dude, and he's talking about, he's like, yeah, we always knew the spears were from the sea people. And you're like, whoa, what?
Whoa.
Anyways, what?
Were you done with that story? I don't want to cut you off early.
No. Well, another cool thing, I guess, in the documentary is that they start hypothesizing a branch of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So like humans, or not humans, but apes, before people become people, a branch of them goes off, becomes more aquatic, and they like do a whole thing over like millions of years. And they I guess the best one, in my opinion, was like the one with the megalodon.
Yeah.
It was really interesting because it starts off like a story. They're like animated, they're like kind of crappy CGI.
Yeah.
It's 2012. But you know,
What a year.
you have this mermaid dude. He's like swimming around with his like whalebone spear, and then there's like a whole flock of mermaids over there, and then you see this megalodon start coming for them, and he's like, hey, you guys gotta get out of there, but they can't hear him, and then like the megalodon's getting closer, so he cuts himself and he starts bleeding.
Yeah.
This is all in the documentary
Yeah.
that Animal Planet made in
Yeah.
2012.
Whoa.
This is wild.
And the megalodon like smells the blood, so he starts like chasing after the lone merman, and everyone in the group like sees him and they're like, you like sacrificed yourself. And then they have him like, it's dope, dude. The shot is so sick. He's like swimming up towards the surface, and the megalodon is like, cause it's like from above, right? So
Yeah.
he's swimming towards you, and then you just see like the huge jaws of the megalodon come up, and right before it closes, they cut back.
Oh.
And you're like, whoa. And I was like, just for showing like the supposed evolution of mermaids, you didn't have to go that far.
Yeah.
Like, that's not like necessary.
We go full extreme.
Yeah, but it's sick.
That sounds pretty dope.
Definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, I might check that out. I've never seen that one.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, my favorite part about this is that when this documentary came out, because it was presented in documentary format, even though it was mockumentary, it was so convincing that the actual National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration received enough inquiries following it that they had to make a statement. And I thought this was my favorite. It's just so interesting. The article I read about this said that they issued a statement denying the existence of mermaids. But if you go to the website, if you go to NOAA's website and read the statement, it doesn't actually deny.
Oh.
The statement reads, "Are mermaids real?" Blah, 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 other stuff that I cut out. But it says, "Are mermaids real? No evidence of aquatic humanoids has ever been found." It does not say they do not exist.
Oh.
It doesn't say they don't
Just saying
exist. It just says there's
no
no
evidence.
evidence found.
What are you hiding, Noah?
Yeah. It's just, it's weird, dude. It's a weird documentary.
Yeah.
Because I think it's over dramatic at points.
Well, I just looked up a clip. Does it start off with the boys finding the mermaid on the beach and then it like
Well-
jumps up and grabs them or
Whoa.
something?
Yeah, well, see, they split it up. So they make you wait for that little bit. But it starts off with the boys on the beach, and then you see something, and he's like poking it with a stick, and you just see this hand like start to move.
It looks so
And
fake though.
They cut, wait, and then at the end of the documentary, that's when they show like it jumps up and it grabs the kid. And just,
Ah.
Yeah, this is. I'm playing it right now on my
It's
laptop
amazing,
so
dude.
Alex can see it.
nah, I just remember seeing that as like a kid and being like, what?
Whoa.
Like, it's,
Ah.
but it looks so fake.
Ah.
It's
But
so
it didn't look
fake.
fake in 2012, Jasmine.
It was a
I
different
know.
time. We thought the world was gonna end.
It's true.
There's a website listed at the end of this clip. This is from the Animal Planet's actual YouTube channel, the clip that I'm watching right now.
Yeah.
And at the end of the clip, it says, visit believeinmermaids.com, but the website doesn't exist anymore. So
Oh, man.
that's a bummer.
No, but what I was saying, I'm going to critique the actors here.
Oh, no.
Is, because the two main guys so it's a guy and a girl from NOAA, supposedly. And the main guy is so annoying because he does this fake, like, stutter over his words. He's like, that's when we realized, that's when we realized it was a mermaid. And he does that for the entire hour and a half. And it's like, I get it, dude. You're like revealing secrets of the government here,
Yeah.
but just spit it out, bro. And then the chick is just so dramatic about everything. It's like hard, cold, cut facts. It's like, that's when we found the mermaid body in the whale. And you're like, all right, dude. Between the two of them, you're just like, God, I don't know how much of this I can
Get
take.
someone else in here.
But overall, it's a lot of fun. Those evolution animatics, probably the best part of the documentary.
Ooh.
Because that's what, like openly fiction.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun.
They just
dude.
go crazy with it.
But maybe I'll make my own version of it in the future.
Yeah.
That's better.
Well,
It's
let
just
us
a
know when that
remake of
happens.
it. Shot for shot remake.
Shot for shot remake with different actors.
Yeah.
Well, that's the best part of it. Because you have the actors playing the people from NOAA.
Yeah.
But then they do scene recreations like they do in most documentaries, right? but it's already a fictional
Yeah.
thing, right? So they have that whale scene, right? The beached whales. And they have the main characters get out of the car, but they hired actors who looked like they're actors.
Whoa.
Yeah, they like went full blast, like if Jasmine was in the documentary, right? And you're saying you worked at NOAA, right? Then we did the recreation. It wouldn't be you in the recreation. It would be someone else who looks like you.
So it's like super meta.
Yeah,
Dude,
like,
it's pretty wild.
like a Charlie Kaufman movie or something.
It's I thought it was pretty dope.
They wouldn't fall on adaptation with it.
Well, it helped too because they chose pretty basic looking people.
Yeah.
So.
Generic man 1, generic woman 2.
But yeah, I think we're gonna. I think that's it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
everything I got.
Yeah, we talked about the history of mermaids, the mermaid sightings. I mean, it's crazy to think too, because you always think like, oh, mermaids. Nowadays that's like little girls,
know.
like Disney movies,
For real.
But you know what's crazy is a big facet of American pop culture relies on the mermaid.
What?
Talking about Starbucks.
Oh.
You see a
that's
mermaid every day.
It's true.
Sometimes on a corner across from another mermaid because Starbucks are everywhere.
It definitely is interesting though, because like, this was another one of those like instances where I was thinking going into this, oh yeah, we're gonna talk about mermaids, pretty women mermaids sitting on the shore
Yeah.
and sightings like that. Nope, they're aggressive and ugly, and sometimes they're birds. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't actually what we thought it was at all. So sorry to burst your bubble, guys.
I mean, it makes it cooler because, like,
It does.
mermaids, you have one, we have this one idea of them, but
Yeah.
they span, like, the spectrum. They're all over the place. Some are cool, some are evil, some are hairy,
Yeah.
some are manatees,
And pretty recently, there was that whole mermaid trend with, like, fashion and makeup and stuff. Like, the
What?
color scheme, like, the purple and the green and the blue, and, like, baking videos, like mermaid cupcakes, where mermaid tails are coming out of the cupcakes and stuff.
I must have missed that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just who I follow. But yeah, mermaid cupcakes and cookies and birthday parties and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, mermaids are a big, like, fun fantasy trope, and everyone's just like, oh, mermaids, whatever. It's like, no, they've been around for, like, the myth has been around.
30,000 years.
Yeah,
They're cool,
ever
dude.
since the monkey first crawled out of the sea, there's been fish in the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed our really long chat about mermaids. It was kind of, I mean, there was a lot.
Yeah,
There's a
that's
lot.
just, I feel like, the surface. Like,
It really
yeah.
is.
I think we could come back and talk about more
We
mermaids
probably
sometime.
could have done a whole tome on mermaids.
Oh.
Dude,
But
no.
no, thank you. Too
Don't put
much.
ideas in my brain.
14 episodes long of just mermaids.
Good lord. I'm so glad we're done with aliens. I'm so happy.
Now we're just in the ocean floating around. Maybe we'll see a mermaid.
Maybe Stefan is a mermaid.
Yeah, he's a merman.
Of the four of us, I would believe Stefan was a merman.
Stefan's everything, dude.
Yeah.
Alright, so, but if I want to find you online,
Oh.
Alex.
Well, my name is Alex Daikaiju, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Alex Daikaiju, Alex Daikaiju. And if I wanted to find you,
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. My name is the same on both. It's just my name, Jasmine Maywith, JasmineMaewith.
what about you, fella?
You can find me at the Eli Watson on Instagram and Twitter. I also run the Cryptid Campfire Instagram page,
Mm-hmm.
so you can find that at Cryptid Campfire. And that's us on Twitter as well. You can find us on Facebook as well.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a Patreon,
Ooh.
which you can go support. For $5 a month, you'll get access to exclusive episodes.
And you get episodes early, too.
That is true. And we also have the official cryptidcampfire.com, where you can buy your official Cryptid Campfire t-shirt.
Except no substitutes.
Exactly. And did I miss anything?
I don't think
I-
so. We got a lot, man. I
yeah.
never realized how much stuff we plug.
We got so many plugs now. It's crazy.
I know, right?
But yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. I think that's everything for now about mermaids.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah.